Hey guys, welcome to my channel, and this is just a quick video with tips and tricks on how to file and shape your nails. So for the first shape, I'm doing a square nail, and in my opinion, that's the easiest shape to file. If you're using tips like I am for this video, I clip them down to a little bit longer than I would want them to be, because that way it saves you room for filing. And for filing, I would recommend using an 180 grit or 240 grit file, which is a medium grit. Otherwise, the coarser the file, the harder it is to get those even lines. It's going to be way too coarse and you're going to get ragged edges and all that. Nobody wants that. So for the square, you just file the tip straight across. And my personal preference is when you file the sides, you only take a little bit in at a time. If you do too much, you're going to get a wonky shape, or it's going to be too narrow, and you don't want that. So file the sides and then file the tip straight across. And there's no need to file your corners unless they're a little too sharp for you, but you shouldn't need to if you're going for that hard square look. And also when filing any type of shape, if you're filing on your natural nails, you want to make sure to try to file in one direction. Doing this back and forth motion I'm doing is safe if you're using tips, but on your natural nail, going back and forth like that can cause your nail to tear or make little, snags on your nail, and you don't want that. And my second shape is a squoval. So a squoval is just the square that we did first, but with rounded corners. Some people prefer the top of the nail instead of being flat to be more rounded, but in my head, a squoval is just the rounded corners. So a soft square. You do the same thing, file the tip straight across, and then you want to file the sides, do one side at a time, just a little bit on each side, so that way they're even. And then you want to file the corners of the nail to a rounded tip. So personally, when I hold my file, I go in almost like a half circular motion around that corner, and it'll give you that nice rounded edge. And when you see me taking the file and bringing it forward, that's just getting rid of the little tiny hangs of the tip that didn't come off all the way filing straight across. And here I'm just making sure that my top is flat and even how I want it, and that my corners are nice and rounded and they're not a harsh corner. You want them softer for a squoval shape. And just do a little bit at a time until you get it how you want it. And the third shape we're doing is a round. And for a round, if you have a tip, again, like a long tip that you're applying, go ahead and use your nail cutters and clip it down to a little bit longer than how you would want it to be on your nail. It'll save you a lot of filing, a lot of time, a lot of hassle. So for a round one, come in and do your sides again, a little bit on each side. And my tip for filing would be to bring your file to the back side of your nail, like a little bit under the sides, and file towards yourself. That way, if you file just on the side and not have the file slightly under the edge of the nail, it can give you too narrow of a look. So to make it more even, kind of have your file on either side. And you just want to round your tip out. So instead of going straight across, to do that half circular motion with your file and to get that nice rounded edge that you're looking for. And also, you want the tip of your rounded edge to be centered with your nail bed or your finger. So just, keep looking at different angles to make sure it is centered. So the fourth one I am doing is a coffin. And for the coffin, I would highly recommend taking your time. In my opinion, Coffin is one of the harder ones to get even, to have all nails look the same. So I would start, see how I'm holding the file slightly under the edge of the nail instead of just on the side. It'll give you that nice sharp coffin shape that you're looking for, and just do a little bit on each side, because you can always file more, but if you file too much on one side, you can't add to it. So just take your time and do slow motions, no rushing. And for the coffin, I would recommend doing a little bit on the sides, and then you want to flatten out that tip. So flatten your tip as flat as you want it to be, and then go ahead on the sides and file them inward towards the tip. Like the center of the tip, you want to file in that general direction, and it'll give you a nice, flat, clean line. And also with the coffin, I would recommend just the little strokes, and keep looking at it at different angles as well, because you want it to be as even and straight as possible, and you want that tip to be centered with your nail bed. You don't want it off to the left or off to the right, and that's why it's important to do just a little bit on the sides at a time. Also, if you notice, it's important to file the sides towards yourself. You can file away, but it's a little harder. Yeah, just file it towards you the best that you can and get that even coffin lines. The next one I'm doing is an almond shape. And for an almond shape, you kind of file the sides as you would for a coffin, but instead of having that pointed or that flat tip, you want it to be pointed, and not sharp like a stiletto, but also obviously not flat like a coffin. You want it to be more of a pointed oval shape. So you could file the tip kind of as you would if you were filing for a round nail, but not such a round line. You want it to be more oval shaped, and then you want it to come to like a dull stiletto shape. So, you know what an almond looks like. You want it to look like an almond. And just, one side at a time. You don't want to take off too much. And remember, when filing, especially natural nails, take your time. Like, you can always take off more, but you don't want to take off too much and, screw yourself. So just make sure to use the proper file too. I highly recommend using a medium grit file for shaping and filing. Typically I use 180 grit to a 240 grit. Anything less or anything more than that, anything coarser than that, is going to give you raggedy edges and you're not going to get a clean line. My opinion, I only use coarse files for removal, not for filing and shaping. And the last shape I'm doing on this video is a stiletto. Everybody likes a stiletto. You want this baby to be sharp. So if you want to make it easier for you, especially with using tips, instead of going right in with your file, you can actually take cuticle scissors and cut just the edges, like the corners off of your tips, to give you the base shape of your stiletto, and then file. So file like you would a coffin, hold your file at an angle and file it in one direction towards you a couple times on the side, and then switch sides and do the same thing. And you're filing kind of how you would for an almond, but you want it to be really pointed. That's the whole point of the stiletto. And just make sure not to trim too much. If you use the cuticle scissors, you just want to take off that corner. Like if you were to use coffin shaped tips, you just want to take off those corners. You do not want to take off too much, so don't go down the sides. And yeah, just file like you would for a coffin, but file towards that center point. And make sure that center point is aligned with your nail bed and with the center of your finger. And look at it from different angles. Like hold your finger up, make sure it's centered, hold it, You know what I'm saying. You just want to make sure that it's as even as possible. And as you're filing, if you notice that the shape is right, but it's not as sharp as you want it to be, just go in a few more times with that file and bring it, at an angle towards yourself and do a little bit on each side at a time until you get that desired point that you're looking for.